Okay, here we go. Meeting's being live streamed, so you can chat away on YouTube. I'll try to watch it a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll enlist somebody to do some troubleshooting with me on the account on our own time to figure out how that possibly got disabled.
Okay, so it's 9 minutes after the hour. I'm pretty much ready to call us to order if you are ready, Madam Secretary. I think we've got all of our ExCom members here. Where did she go? Did our secretary just disappear?
No, I'm right here.
Oh, my screen did a thing. It moved you from the top corner. Okay, so if you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and call us to order.
Yeah, I am so puzzled. You know that's going to bother me all meeting on how that happened, but okay,
same.
I got you.
Same. Okay, so I'm going to call us to order at 9:09 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's go ahead and let's do formal roll call, and then after that, let's do public comment, 2 minutes per person.
Okay, first I'm going to call the executive committee. Well, I do believe the entire executive committee is here. Am I missing? So I have the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, myself, Mr. Nikela, Mr. Bowen, and who am I missing? Mr. Elliott.
He's
is
here.
He here? Okay.
Here.
All right. Now for the rest of the LNC, I'm just going to call names that I haven't already noted as here. Mr. Blankenship, Mr. Duque, Mr. Eklund, Ms. Gabbard. Martin Cowan is here, isn't he? I believe I saw him.
I'm here.
I don't know why I didn't mark you. Mr. Dassing, Mr. Hall.
I'm here, but
Mr.
I'm a Joshua Smith doppelganger.
Oh,
Wait.
I can change your name and so can Angela. Mr.
Was-
Nepomuceno. Mr. Pankey. And for staff, I have Ms. Houston and Mr. Kraus.
Mr. Benner's here too.
Well, I was only calling out the persons that I didn't already note. So yes, I do have you here,
Sure.
Mr. Benner.
Okay, who am I renaming?
There's a Joshua Smith doppelganger in the room,
Yep.
and one of them is Robley Hall.
Oh, it's Robley. Okay, I just heard Hall, and I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure it was Robley, not Oliver. Gotcha.
It's looking as 478498.
There we go. Right. Are we good?
Yep, I have everybody down, and I'm going to be sharing my screen. So if somebody sees that their name isn't bolded, they can let me know.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move to public comment first. If anybody wants to give public comment, what you want to do is you want to go to the bottom of the screen where it says reactions. You want to click on that little smiley face guy and click the raise hand function, and we're going to give 2 minutes for each person. So if you're not on the executive committee, now is a great time if you want to advocate for something, discuss a concern, anything that's on your mind. Because we may be going into executive session later. I'm not sure if we're going to do public comment again at the end. All right, we've got Mr. Evan McMahon. And while Mr. McMahon gives public comment, if anyone else wants to get their hand up, go right ahead. But Mr. McMahon, thank you very much. Take it away.
Good evening, everybody, members of the LNC, Madam Chair. Commenting today to talk about priorities and budgeting. You may have noticed on the elected libertarian list, Indiana actually had 7 elected libertarians on election night, not 3. And so that puts Indiana and Kentucky, which also had 7. Our 7 that were elected in Indiana, only 1 was nonpartisan. But with Indiana and Kentucky, both getting 7, that's 14 in Region 3 elected. That makes us 2/3 of the elected libertarians this year. With that, how we were able to achieve that was by providing our candidates with data on reaching both donors, volunteers, contacts, and members within their district, being able to go out and go door knocking. All of those things were only possible because of the CRM. We have all of our county affiliates are now using the CRM. They're recording candidate contribution. They're logging volunteer hours, yard sign distribution, donor data for the county and the candidates. This is the thing that is the golden ticket for us. And we have a great system in place for being able to do it. Indiana on its own is paying for development of special features such as having eCanvasser API to work directly into CiviCRM, as well as using the National Program Donor Search. Once these things are completed, they would be made available for all states. But Indiana has spearheaded it. We know National doesn't necessarily have the funds to give us everything we want. So we are self-funding some of those programs. So I would encourage the LNC while you're budgeting right now and setting priorities to please prioritize the CRM, at least its maintenance as it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McMahon. Okay, do we have anyone else? Okay, not. Okay. If not, oh yeah, no, okay. A little bit of staticky noise, but that's okay.
Madam Chair, I actually
yes.
had housekeeping. If
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope everyone, I will figure out again, apologies for the chat thing, but I hope everyone realized tonight, please do register if you're an LNC member as soon as the meeting is published. Scrambling at the last minute could result in people not being able to get in. I can fix issues with your registrations with enough lead time, but 10 minutes before getting 10 messages 10 minutes before the meeting, it's not sustainable. So we need to do this ahead of time as soon as meeting notices are published. Thank you.
Okay, any other housekeeping or last minute items? Okay, so I am going to, in just a moment, turn it over to our treasurer and executive director to give a little bit of an overview. So here's kind of how this is going to go. We're going to give an overview, and then we're going to go into executive session before we discuss anything like staff, contracts, so on and so forth. That is normal. It is not to keep anybody in the dark. It's just out of privacy concerns and NDA stuff. So I apologize that that has to happen, but it is par for the course. So our lovely treasurer did a really good job of working with our executive director and me to come up with a really good budget. And I believe the way that he did this, correct me if I'm wrong, is by looking at historical trends, specifically a 4-year cycle. And he went 2, maybe 3 cycles back. And what we could tell from these trends is he found a really simple algorithm that where, especially when it comes to memberships and financials, and look at about a 13-month ago period. What were donations looking like 13 months ago? Some of it has to do with retention. And so he used that to come up with an algorithm that gave us a really safe, predictable budget. And the number that we're going to be looking at as an overview is $1.7 million. And that is based on historical trends. So what this means is we are not shooting for an unrealistic number for our budget. It's very much grounded in reality. It's also grounded on like projections of growth that we've also seen in the past. We're really striving to have a balanced budget this cycle and to not have to constantly move things around. We want to know exactly where we're going, you know, how we got there, and so on and so forth. So I am going to turn it over to Mr. Hagopian, and at any point, if Ms. Houston has something to pass, you know, to chime in as well, I think that would be appropriate.
Thank you, Ms.
Todd, thanks. Yeah.
So from a very high level, the revenue for this budget is going to end up being $1.729 million. The expenses for the budget will also be $1.729 million. We believe, based on member contributions per year and the number of members, we went back and looked at, as the chair said, a number of cycles, and we are very comfortable with the 1729 number. It is not, I would say it's not under promising. It is probably exactly where it should be. And then the staff is doing a number of things this year that will hopefully allow us to over deliver. If that happens, we can come back and amend the budget. But as I mentioned at the previous budget discussion, this will be a belt tightening budget at 1.729. So that's where we have to end today and over the next few weeks as the LNC approves the budget. That being said, we have some specific challenges this year, including a huge ballot access bogey that needs to be taken care of between 23 and 24. We have done a good job, I believe, at allocating a lot of money towards ballot access in 2023 to get us started and to give us a chance at the 50-state ballot access. So we will be going through that. And I just want to give a friendly reminder to everybody that anything that we decide to add to the budget that is presented to you will probably come out of ballot access. And that's how important this ballot access line is this year. As the chair said, we'll go into executive session because certain line items will make it clear on things that we can't be clear about. In addition, I wanted to say that we have done a lot of cleaning up of the GL codes and essentially made the budget much more nimble and easier to manage. So there will be larger GL codes, meaning more things will fit into one, and that will allow the staff more flexibility throughout the year to do the things that they need to do and to pivot when they need to pivot. That still means we have to have the 10% rule. We have to be cognizant of what we approve, but it also gives us a little bit more flexibility. So you will see that. It will be plain and simple and clear on what those dollars are meant to be used for. But it just won't drill down beyond what we're required to do. And those have all been gone through with the auditor, but they will be gone through one more time just to ensure once we've approved that they agree with everything. So after today, if we approve, if we approve or get close to approving what we're going to send to the LNC, there will be a couple more weeks here where we work with the auditor, work with Robert, work with Laney, and also break down the budget into the 12 months that Angela was talking about, using the algorithm so that we actually have exactly what is going to be spent each month. We have a pretty good idea right now, but obviously any decisions tonight will impact that. So at that point, we will have a very scientific budget, not a straight line budget as we've seen in previous years, which will help us avoid any cash crunches in the future. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Ms. Houston, do you have anything to add to that?
Nope, that's fantastic. I'm sure, as you know, we prepared some visuals if we want to ask questions about the best way to adjust the budget as we get really good feedback tonight. I think we can just save that though for time unless that question actually comes up. But yeah, okay. One thing I just like to say is huge kudos to Todd, who has worked incredibly hard for this organization to make the best budget possible, like he said, based on science. So want to make sure he gets a lot of credit for that. Thanks for all the hard work there, Todd.
Yep, thank you. One other thing I will say before we get into it is no one can expect to see any shocks in our IT line. So if there are worries about that, you can let those worries like drop. We're not going into executive session to do anything insane. Okay, so we're gonna need to, I think, probably move into executive session at this point. Am I correct, Lainey and Todd?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes. Oh, Dustin, Nana?
I was just going to make the motion to rise into executive session.
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay, so I would like Ms. Houston to be in that executive session with us. And LNC members as well. Is that amenable to you?
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine.
So I have a real concern before we go into executive session.
And
And
I do
that's
have
that-
a question, Madam Chair,
Yes.
not to interrupt you, but just when you're done.
I don't want to see anything in executive session leaked onto Facebook. And if I do, there's going to be discussion of removal because it's not okay. I want to make it really clear. I've been super chill with everyone. If I see this sort of stuff happening again, I'm going to start talking to state chairs. I'm going to talk to whoever I need to do to have that bug in their ear because that's incredibly unprofessional. It puts us at liability and it's just not okay. And we need to do better than that. Ms. Hartless.
Did we need Mr. Kraus as operations director or no?
We don't, but if we have any questions, I believe it would be appropriate to pull him in.
I would like to, do we need someone who's going to be in the general room with co-host
Oh,
capabilities? I can do, if Mr. Kraus is remaining in the open room, I could make him a co-host just in case. You never know, with Zoom.
sure. Mr. Kraus, how do you feel about that?
No problem.
Okay, I'm
Thank you
going
so
to
much.
do that just so we have that control. And 7:26, just needed to note the time. So did you want me to throw everyone into, I know that sounded quite violent.
Well, let's
Into,
here, let me call it first. So it's been moved. Do we have a second to go into executive session?
second,
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session with the LNC members and with our executive director. Any objections? Going once, going twice, hearing none. Okay, we're going to go into executive session. So we're going to do breakout rooms.
okay.
Did we automatically get moved over here?
Yes.
Okay.
But no, Dustin, you must not have used the account.
I used my Zoom account and then when I just clicked the link from my Yahoo and it didn't ask me like if I wanted to use any different email. I just
Okay, well,
clicked
I'm throwing you in there now. I need to put in Lainey. And who else is remaining?
Kathy.
Dave.
Okay, hold on. I'm looking through the list here. Kathy needs to go in. Kathy, I knew we would have an issue with because we had an issue with her email. Dave. And I think that's it. I think everyone else that's left in here, except for me. Am I correct? Is there anyone else in this room that oh, Carrie. I have her as being, Carrie, are you still here?
I don't see her.
My screen must be,
If she comes back in, I will send her your way.
okay, so now I am going to,
Madam Secretary,
yes, Mr. Mullman?
I noticed that we're still appear to be live on YouTube. I was wondering if we could maybe stop the recording and we can just sit here and chill and chat while you are gone. I mean, just saying.
We normally keep the YouTube stream going.
Okay.
Don't say anything you don't want on YouTube.
Okay.
Because to start and stop it makes it have two different sessions. People get very confused. I can tell you that when I put it up on Elpedia, I do edit out this part, but it still is on the party channel.
Okay.
Okay, I'll see you guys back, hopefully very quickly. Bye-bye.
Bye. So what's everybody else up to, since we're all just hanging here? Is it just you and me, Robert? Who else is here?
Oh, there's several of us. We have Bill Cox. Hi, Bill. Brian, Evan, George. Hey, George. Jonathan Jacobs. Ken, obviously. You, obviously. Michael, Sylvia. So, yeah.
Nice.
Welcome, everyone. I'm going to mute, but you're all welcome to talk about what's going on in your states. And I'm just going to pay attention if there's other people trying to get in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, Robert. I
I'll
hope
just
you are
point out that-
enjoying Florida.
Yeah, it's nice and rainy the last couple of days and going into the next week, and the temperature is okay. It's just blowing rain. It's disgusting. I hate it. It's not the wet season. We've had more rain in probably the last, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks than we did the entire summer during the wet season. So go figure. No clue.
I did want to ask, and I don't know if anybody knows or not, or if it's been decided. Does anybody know what happened with the Pennsylvania cases? I was kind of following those.
I think they were thrown out, I think.
Okay.
The last I had heard, at least the initial round was sent away. That doesn't mean that, there isn't
Yeah.
something else that,
Yeah, I try to follow those things, especially since it's my home state, but. And on another matter, Sylvia, I wanted to thank you for inviting me to that cyber meeting.
Oh, you're most welcome.
I enjoyed it.
Good.
I hope you all enjoyed it as well.
Yes, yes, it was very well received.
In Massachusetts, the Republican Party is in such disorder that they couldn't get one of their candidates for statewide office on the ballot. He needed to collect 10,000 valid signatures.
Wow.
Of course, they are down to 9% of the registered voters, and the feud between the country club Republicans and the conservative Republicans is, let us say, vitriolic. Fortunately, only has to be seen at a safe distance. On his way out, the current incumbent Republican governor did what he could to wreck the Republican Party in his state, as a result of which Chris Crawford got 27% of the vote in a two-way for statewide office, which is actually pretty good for a libertarian. And we will have major party, what is called political party status here in 2 years. So someone will get to put some libertarian presidential candidate on the ballot. And at this point, Massachusetts election law becomes complicated. I prefer to view it at a safe distance. Are you saying something, Ken?
No, I was saying it's complicated. I was agreeing it is complicated. You guys, New Hampshire, like there's a clump of states there with some interesting law on ballot access. It's interesting. It's interesting because, you know, Tennessee and Ohio, for instance, have basically the same ballot access laws. And for instance, they can only get on with a party petition. By contrast, like Kentucky, which in between, there is no party petition. We have to petition every single person on as an independent. The ballot access laws are just, you know, always interesting. But the idea and what befuddles me is the whole, like, you could have more than one candidate. When you're not a major party, you can end up with more than one candidate on the general election ballot with the same label, and that's just weird to me. That's all. That one befuddles me greatly.
On the other hand,
But-
sorry.
No, you're fine.
On the other hand, for determining major party status, if you have several candidates on the ballot for the same office, at least in New Hampshire, the vote totals add. So
Yeah, that's even weirder.
Well, if I recall correctly, the law refers to the vote for the party, not the vote for the candidate. The other path to getting major party status, we call it political party status in Massachusetts, is having a large enough number of registered voters. We don't have a party petition. I'll correct that in a second. But if you have 1% of the registered voters or get 3% of the vote for a statewide office, you get political party status.
Okay.
The exception is if you just want to turn on a party name, which is something to create what is known as a political designation, that's completely separate, and you just need 50 signatures.
It's so strange. And then meanwhile, Pennsylvania, I guess the law changed, but previously in Pennsylvania, the only way to get party access permanently was to have 20% of the registered voters or something. It was some crazy high number. And that was the only way to get access. And I guess that law changed, although I haven't looked into that. I'm trying to fade out of all the national stuff. So tired, go back home, do stuff in Kentucky. We got 7 people elected. That's
Yay.
Pretty good. Yeah. And actually the best one, the one that we got, you know, the city council, it was a field race for top 6 win. Our guy got number 1, which is awesome. Like, we didn't just squeak in, we won.
Bravo.
He won. So pretty excited about that. And it'll be interesting to see what the next 2 years bring and what they do while in office. And hopefully we can hold those. I think we held, everybody who ran for re-election held, and everyone who, we unfortunately only had 10 candidates. I ran out of resources because I was doing stuff at national to really recruit more. We could have had a lot more wins, just unfortunate, but we're focused on 24. 24. So pretty excited.
In Massachusetts, having political party rather than political designation status has no direct effect on getting anyone on the ballot. You have to go out there and collect signatures from voters. In Massachusetts, though, the signatures from voters cannot, if we're a major party, cannot come from Democrats or Republicans, only from libertarians and unenrolled independent voters.
Wow.
Of course, half or more of our voters are unenrolled independents, but those are the people who aren't interested in politics and won't sign your nominating papers. Bob Underwood, who has run regularly every 2 years for a good number of years now, he's run out of steam, he's in his 70s, reports that unenrolled voters are the people least likely to sign libertarian nominating papers. The people who are most likely to sign are Democrats.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. I mean, I've had that experience in Kentucky actually too. Democrats tend to be more along, at least the average Democrat seems to be more in the, yeah, everybody should have the right to run mindset. Sorry, I didn't cut you off there.
No, you didn't. He has the advantage that he speaks Spanish. Well, Puerto Rican Spanish, this gets complicated. His district is in large part Puerto Rican. And when he was running against a Democrat, the Democrat, it turns out, did not speak Spanish. And therefore, when he went out to collect signatures until the plague started, he did quite well.
Yeah. Nice.
In New Hampshire, if you're a major party, the state committee has some authority to complete the ballot column, but I don't understand the details. They're not simple like our laws here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, in Kentucky, we lost a court case back in 2008, and it was a BS opinion, so they didn't publish it, which is a weird thing that it's like, it's case law, but you can't find it anywhere. That basically says that we are to be treated as independents until such time as we achieve, we're a three-tier state. So there's a political group, political organization, and political party. And group is what we normally are. Organization is what we got after 2016 because we hit the vote threshold for that. To hit party status, I think it's 20% for president. We only have one race that's a vote test, and that's president. And that really sucks because we don't even have control over who our nominee is. Like, kind of have a little bit of say, but it's not like we, the people of Kentucky and the members in Kentucky, get sole decision making on that. So that's always something I've wanted to challenge, but because we do nominate for president, I've been told that we wouldn't have standing. We've tried to work with the state. We've tried to get them to change it, to put a different race in there, and to no avail. Indiana, I know, has Secretary of State, and it's just a real shame if they would give us a different race. In 2019, we had 2 executive branch offices that were down ballot that we hit in a 3-way race. We hit 4 point something, which, assuming the 2% threshold were to be applied to other races, would have given us ballot access or maintained it in some way. But we had access from 17 until the end of 20. And then that was the end for us. Now we're back to petitioning. Yay.
Indiana has been very fortunate and consistent in having major party status, for which much credit to them.
Yeah, they did really well this time. Is Evan still on here? Evan, you still here?
Yep, I'm still here.
What did you guys get? 4.6?
No, 5.7. 100,000 votes, which it's not the record for percentage, but it is the record. The record for percentage was 5.8, so we were 0.1 away. But it is the record for most votes, total votes. But we actually were involved in a ballot access lawsuit against the state. We're partnered with the Greens and a couple of independents. There's actually an independent mayor in Indiana who, even though he's elected, when he runs here this year in 2023, he has to go out and collect signatures as an independent. So he has to get 2% of the SOS signatures in his district to be able to be on the ballot again to get reelected as mayor. So we filed a lawsuit in federal court against the state, and the state cited the Hall precedent and said that our case should just be dismissed. It's nothing new. And the judge ruled right before literally the week before the election, he rejected the dismissal and stated in his order that the Hall decision is over 30 years old. Lots of things have changed since then, and it is now time for us to do a factual review of ballot access laws.
Well, here's hoping you get something good out of that, because if you can set some good precedent in your circuit, we can try to get it applied over in ours, because our ballot access lawsuit basically got dismissed on the whole, this is established case law. Get out of here, kids.
Yeah,
And that was it.
and that's the case. And we figured once the state presented that, we were hoping at least the court wouldn't dismiss our entire lawsuit and would keep some of the things that were still prevalent or relevant. That was the hope. But the judge basically said, nope, we're going to keep it all in. It's time for us to review this. And I was like, wow, was not expecting that at all. That's great. So
well, I will tell you, in regards to Indiana, and we've talked about this, Evan, you all got to do something about the way that they tally your straight ticket. Like, that's nuts that you can't go down and change stuff further down the ballot, that once you mark straight ticket, you're done.
They've also, I mean, I was telling you that the chair of the election committee intentionally last year made the language on straight ticket voting vague and basically impossible to know what the law actually is. And when I challenged him on it and just asked for a simple yes or no answer, he said, basically what I asked was, if I click the straight ticket button and there is no candidate of that party in a race, can I scratch vote and vote for a different candidate? And his response was, it depends. And I said, wait, that's a pretty simple question. What could it possibly depend on? And he said, well, it depends on the county. And I said, whoa, counties don't have home rule in Indiana. The election law is handed down by the state. They can't adopt their own policies and procedures. It's state law. So how can it depend? That doesn't make any sense. And he said, well, it's going to be their interpretation. And I'm like, that's not how the law works. How are you a legislator? How are you the chair of this committee? And it was intentional. It was intentional so that it would sow misinformation. And we actually were informed by the Democrats that in one of the counties, there was a absentee ballot that was being processed on election day. And when they reviewed it, the person had voted straight ticket libertarian. And we didn't have a candidate in every race. So the person scratch voted and they voted for a Democrat in the race where there was no libertarian. And the Republican challenged the ballot and they held it as a provisional ballot. So I had to call the election division. The election division sent an email to the county election board and said, one, it is not provisional. That is the law. They can cast their ballot that way. And two, it was unlawful for you to hold it as a provisional ballot. It needed to be, they do not need to come in and certify anything. You're to process the ballot immediately. And they did, but and we only know about it because the Democrat was angry and called us. How many other counties did that happen in? And we have no way of knowing.
I still think Rainwater did better the last time than he got credit for, because people that went in and voted straight ticket, whatever, then went down and marked Rainwater, not knowing that they wasn't going to count.
We have observed from the counties that report, because they're not required to report, but we've observed statewide about a little less than 3% of the vote were spoiled. And we believe it was because of scratch voting, because the scratch voting was not processed correctly, which to me says that was probably somebody who wanted to vote straight ticket Republican, but also wanted to vote for Rainwater. That is my gut. So I think Rainwater actually was probably somewhere closer to 15 to 20%.
Right. I mean, not that it changes any ballot access for you, though, right? It's just we could have ended up. I mean, it could have changed. It wouldn't have changed like the election boards or things like that, but it could have been a couple more counties where he had come in second place or potentially come in first place in a county. And if you have that kind of momentum going into the next election, you can build off that there. Yes.
So, it could have had a dramatic impact. Even, it may not have won. It didn't impact our ballot access, but it could have had an impact on how we're perceived within that county.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I like I said, I still think, man, I think there's a lawsuit there. That's all. I can't believe that they can invalidate what is clearly the intent of the voter in that case. right? The
Unfortunately,
voter is
we can't sue
obviously,
because we don't know how the ballot was counted or what the deficiency of the ballot is because they're secret ballots. So we there's no way, like I have complete access to the voter registration. I can see whose ballots were rejected. But we have no way of knowing why it was rejected.
I mean, is it possible to intentionally try to get one of a friendly's ballot rejected, and you can see that their ballot was rejected, and then demand,
I think I will state this since it is being broadcast on YouTube. I believe that would be electioneering. So
boo.
I would not support that for anybody watching on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I don't advocate for people to break the law. I was just more about creating the standing to be able to get it to court, because
I think if we can verify that there was a large number of spoiled votes. And this year, one of the things that we're going to be doing is once the results are finalized and the registration information is all updated, I can see who had their ballots spoiled. We're going to send a letter to every single person basically saying, did you know that your ballot was spoiled and was not counted?
Nice. Yeah.
Here's the contact information for your county clerk to ask why your ballot was not counted.
That'll end well for them.
Mm-hmm. that may change things, because if enough people get angry about it, and because there was a woman who wanted to run for delegate to the Republican state convention, which they actually vote for their delegates in the primary, but you had to vote in 2 Republican primaries to be eligible to be elected in the primary. That's for all their candidates. And so when I'm sorry, what?
Can I see that bottle of the wine?
It's mine. I don't know where yours is. Sorry, my mother was bothering me. So what the hell was I saying?
I was interested in trying to figure out what you were trying to hand to your mom. Was it a bottle of wine? Is that what I heard?
No, it was a bottle of Eli.
Okay.
Okay. The one is what she said. The one.
We're talking about you were talking about a
the
delegate.
Right.
A
So you
Aaron,
have to be a delegate as a Republican or a Democrat to their state convention, or to be a candidate even in the primary, you have to vote in the last 2 primaries for that party, or get the county chair to say you are a party member in good standing. And there was a whole anti-establishment group of Republicans that were trying to get slated as delegates. And a woman went in and put her name down to be in the primary to be voted on as a delegate. And she was informed that she had not voted in the last 2 primaries as a Republican. And she said, yes, I did. And they said, nope, you didn't vote. According to our records, your ballots were spoiled.
Wow.
And so she came to us and was like, can you guys help me with this? And I was like, I mean, not really. there's not anything that we can do to fix it, but you should.
How in the world would a primary ballot get spoiled? I mean, like, I marked the box wrong? Like, what?
Maybe you didn't sign your name or date it. If it was, because it was they were absentee ballots. She mailed them in.
Wow.
And so if you don't sign it, but the thing is the county is supposed to contact you within 10 days or you have 10 days to come in to fix the error, such as signing the envelope or dating it or anything like that. You have 10 days. And they're supposed to send you a certified letter telling you to come in immediately and remedy your ballot. And she
if I remember right,
contacted.
If I remember right, your whole thing is you vote, you put it in an envelope, then there's another thing on the outside, you put that in an envelope, right? So like the vote is still hidden.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Because I was going to say it wasn't a matter if they saw who they voted for and went, oh, shucks, what a shame. Anti-establishment person. That's just spoiled. Darn.
All of those that when they come in, there's literally, they have to have a locked room where they are processed by both a Republican and a Democrat. And they both see them and they open up the original ballot. They look or the original ballot envelope, and they inspect it to make sure that it's signed and dated and the signature matches and everything. And then they put it in a box that's locked, and they do that for everyone that comes in. And then on election day, they're transported to a specific machine where they are processed. And then the Republican and the Democrat, the election sheriff and the election judge, then and the inspectors stand there, and they hand feed every single ballot into the scanning machine one by one. They open the envelope, pull out the ballot, run it through the machine, and then the votes are tabulated, and then they're sent to the main computer system. So there's at least a handful of people watching to make sure something nefarious doesn't happen. 90% of the problems that we see on election day are not ill intent, they're incompetence. It's either incompetence or lack of attention to detail. It's one of the two, but it's not typically, it's not somebody trying to do something bad. It's just stupidity. And we had a lot of it. We had Tanya Millis, our candidate for the 9th Congressional District. We found out that they had misspelled her name on the ballot. Now, the way
they make it Mills or something instead of Millis?
It was Mills instead of Millis. So I called down to the clerk's office, and they were very apologetic. They were so sorry about it. But this is the Monday before the election.
Right.
And, so they can't reprint the ballots. And they were like, what do you want us to do? And I was like, why don't you hang a sign at the sign-in at every polling place stating that her name was misspelled? They did that. They actually put a notice on the e-poll book, the little iPad that you sign in on. When you sign in, before you can finish, it popped up to tell you that Tanya Millis's name was spelled incorrectly in the 9th Congressional District race. They ran an ad in the local paper every day leading up to the election. They got it in real quick. And so I was like, that works for me. We're not angry. But that same county did not process or did not tabulate 1,500 ballots. Oh, actually, they forgot. They had tabulated it. They were processed. They just didn't upload that number to the election system. It's the lack of detail. It's the lack of paying attention.
I'm confused. They didn't do what? They didn't upload it to the state or something? What happened?
No, so when the way these machines work, and this is true almost universally, they have a little hard drive. Sometimes they're little flash drives, but it's a little hard drive, and it scans all the ballots, and it's tabulating onto that hard drive as it's going. When it's all done, they take that hard drive and they go to a central computer, hook that drive into that central computer, and hit upload, essentially.
Okay.
And what this one deputy clerk was doing was she was taking a couple of these that totaled 15, I think it was 6 drives total for like 1,500 votes. She would plug them in, she would process everything, and then she didn't hit upload.
Oh.
So it wasn't actually uploading the numbers. Yeah, and the clerk caught it. She said, wait a minute, hold on. We have this many votes, but we had this many people that checked in and to vote. That something's wrong. And they found what it was, but then they had to wait until this last Friday, to actually rerun the numbers. They had to literally upload all of the hard drives all over again in front of the election board. And then the numbers matched. They were correct. So they knew what the problem was. They secured the hard drives, but it's just, and that happened in multiple counties. Monroe County had 6,000 ballots like that. So it's not nefarious. It's just, and I hate to say incompetence too. It's just not paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, the other question is this a volunteer that isn't been properly trained?
No, they're paid.
I mean, okay. Oh, okay.
They work for the clerk's office. These are deputy clerks.
Okay, that's different.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, if it's like some 80-year-old woman, it's like just there, like, I'm doing my civic duty. I have a little more.
But she's still getting paid.
Well, Yeah, but I have a little more leniency towards in Kentucky. They pay you $25 to work the polls, a 12-hour shift. It's $2 an hour.
It's like $18 an hour here.
Oh wow, no, yeah, it's like $2 an hour here. So
Oh yeah, no.
It's-
We actually had Republicans in a couple of counties a couple of years ago. The paid staff on election day are equally split between Republicans and Democrats, with the exception of the election inspector is whoever the top political party is, whoever got the
Right.
highest SOS vote. And it's whoever the top two get these positions.
Okay.
So
Yep.
they have to be Republican or Democrat. However, the Republicans or the Democrats, if they can't fill it with somebody that's a bona fide member, they can do or other. So
Right.
they can't appoint a Democrat, but they can appoint a libertarian or a green or something like that. Actually, it would have to be libertarian or green.
Interesting.
And so we had Republicans asking us a couple of years ago if we would supply libertarians to be paid Republicans on election day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of have that here in Kentucky too. That when you run out of when they can't get enough volunteers, then they open it up to everyone else. Because here in Kentucky, the traditional was Democrat, Republican, or other, and then in 2006 they recognized 5 or 6 other designations, and we're one of them. But you'll still see a lot of the older folks referring to Democrat, Republican, or other, and that's it, because it used to just be one big category of other.
Right.
Now it is actually within those groups, there is actually still other, but they recognize Constitution, Green, Libertarian, Socialist Workers, Reform, True Independent, just a small I independent, and other. And based on what I see, other tends to be our voter registration forms are hilarious. They have Democrat, Republican, and other, and then a line next to the other, the physical cards. And then underneath of it is this big warning about if you choose other, you will not be allowed to vote in a primary for the Democrats or Republican parties. And then it has this line, right, that's up next to other, and it says place name here.
Oh.
Right.
Right.
Because that's the name of the party that they're saying, but it looks like you're signing off like this legal form, like I know I'm not going to be able to vote in the primaries.
Right.
So the number of cards that I have seen over time with people's signatures there is hilariously high.
Yeah.
And I've talked to this board of elections about this downstate, and I'm like, this form is defective, right? I mean, you guys have to see the same thing I see, because I see it. I'm only in one part of the state, but I'm pretty sure this is everywhere, where people are actually putting their name here because they think they're signing off their right to vote in a primary.
Right.
And
funny.
Yeah. So the electronic forms, though, once they started letting online registration, that was really a boom for us, because we could register by party here, and that was really good for us because, we were actually listed as an explicit option rather than somebody has to write other.
We don't have party registration in Indiana.
That's unfortunate.
We used to. It went away in the 90s. It was because the legislature, state agencies were being investigated. Essentially what was going on was whatever party was in control of the legislature, you had to be a state worker, you had to be a member of the party, so would change the registration. And they were being investigated for it. And so the legislature was like, maybe we should get rid of this. So they did.
Yeah, no, that's been a thing in the past here in Kentucky, where the legislature or a lot of the jobs end up flipping based on who wins the governorship, because we have a pretty strong governor here in Kentucky.
And most jobs in Indiana are government jobs are, aside from, the director level, are not political appointments in any way, except for the election division. So the election division is split equally between, this is funny. The election division leadership must be the number one party and other. Doesn't have to be the number two party. It just has to be. However, the staff, the co-councils, and then all of the support staff must be equally split between the top two parties.
Wow.
Yeah. And there, that's it. And then the election commission itself, the actual board, is both the top two parties. But other than that, everything else is non-political or not political appointments.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I don't know. Here, I think State Board of Elections in Kentucky is similar to that. I think it's a 50-50 split between the top two parties, actually, is the way they do things typically here, and then also at the county level.
Yeah, well, the boards themselves, the county election board and the state election board, the actual boards is 3-2. So whoever the top party is 3, or that kind of metric. It may be 2 and 1, but it's always the top party has one more vote than the other.
Yeah, they changed it here a few years ago when we had a Republican governor, Republican legislature, and a Democratic Secretary of State. They changed who got to make the appointments to the State Board of Elections, and I can't remember how that all shook out now.
The governor makes the appointments here.
Yeah.
However, in the staff or the election division, they're appointed by party.
Yeah, I like, I don't know. Well, and that gets back to the whole thing that George was talking about before, that I hate when stuff's all based off a party. That's just gross. Yeah. It's our system of governance, or our system of elections, is not supposed to be about parties.
Nope.
And I always point this out to people by asking one trivia question. Do you know what party Abraham Lincoln ran under for re-election?
For re-election?
For re-election.
Nobody else will answer it. I will.
Waiting to see if anybody else knows, but most people don't know.
He wasn't a Whig, or was it the abolishment party?
Nope. No.
Was it Whig?
Nope.
Can I give it a shot?
Sure.
National Union?
It was either National Union or Unionist. It was basically, yes, it was that. National Union. Yeah. Which wasn't really a party at all. He just picked a label and ran with it because he was like, these Northern Democrats, if they vote against me now, they're voting against the Union.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that was the exact signal he was trying to put out. Back before the ballots got flipped over on their heads, and it became about parties and not about candidates. And I mean, good Lord, that Pennsylvania race is like, I don't even know what happened in Pennsylvania. Like, I don't understand how everybody just didn't go in and leave that Senate race blank. It's like that's two terrible choices. Yeah. And but that's where we're at as a country right now. Is people are like, oh, I'm just going to vote for Republicans to vote against Democrats. I'm going to vote for Democrats to vote against Republicans. How about voting for somebody?
The Republican candidate for Secretary of State here in Indiana, lied about his military career. Claimed he was this overseas veteran. He was only in active duty for 3.5 months, but claimed it was like 6 years. To the point where I had veterans calling us at the state party saying that they were so pissed, and these were hardcore Republicans, would say, if he shows up at another event wearing that veteran's hat, we're going to take it off him the hard way, is what one veteran said to me. And so there was that. He had previously worked for the Secretary of State's office twice and was fired twice for incompetence. But 3 days before the Republican convention, 3 days before he got the nomination, he spent $43,000 buying a car for the campaign. And it was a highly contested convention too. He was accused of groping two women. And when I say groping, I'm putting it very lightly. And these were Republicans. These are women who work in the Republican Party, came forward before the convention, and the state leadership ignored them. And then they brought it public. Let's see, what else was there? In 2018, he listed his residence and got the homestead tax credit in Marion County for his home, while he was registered to vote and voted twice in the primary and the general election from Hendricks County. So he either committed tax fraud or election fraud, one of the two. He refused.
Oh, what's a little fraud between friends?
Right. He refused to talk to the media. He would not come to the debates. There was all of this stuff. And the Republican county chairs were basically telling their members via text and email and phone calls that if the Republican doesn't win in your county, the Democrats get to appoint the election inspectors and they will run the election in that county. Don't vote for the Libertarian, vote for the Republican. And so we had people, we had a lot of all of the counties. I think we had like 70 people working at polling places on election day as Libertarians. And people were like, they were being told, people were coming up and saying, I would vote for Jeff, but I can't risk the Democrats running elections here in our county.
Yeah.
And so like it worked, that messaging, you know, they were doing it like 3 days before the election. And you know, this guy got like 55% of the vote. And I'm like, just admit it. Just admit you don't actually care about the election integrity that you were talking about, because you just voted for this guy. Like, it's all BS. You're all full of it. You just voted because you didn't want the Democrat to win. It's ridiculous.
Insanity.
Robert, do you have any impression as to whether the LNC executive committee is coming out at some point?
They always come out at some point.
Well, yes, but do you think they're going to do anything after that other than adjourn?
Who the heck knows?
Just thought I'd ask.
I believe the process is any motion that they're going to make, any action that they're going to take, they have to rise out of executive session and do that publicly.
Fair enough.
The discussion is held in executive session, but the action taken, if any, has to be done in the main meeting. If that makes sense.
The bylaws specifically state, because there is some question about whether or not you can take legal action in executive session. Our bylaws do allow, in theory, very limited things to occur in executive session. But passing a draft budget is not one of those things.
Right.
Which is what they're doing tonight, I believe.
I think they could take action against an employee. I think they could vote for funding a lawsuit or initiating a lawsuit in executive session.
Personnel issues are exempt, and legal is exempt. I maybe can contract, maybe.
I don't think so.
Well,
I think contracts have to be public.
And things of a what is it? Political strategy.
Yeah, but they still have to. It's the discussion, but the doing the thing, like let's say we're going to talk about doing this thing in executive session, but when we come out of executive session, we vote to spend the money on the thing we discussed.
Correct, if it was an LNC meeting, but this is an EC meeting. So I believe the only thing they were doing business-wise is reviewing the proposed budget, and that's basically it. So I suspect they may come out and that would be it, or they may show some of the budget or talk some more about the budget. But
I am reminded of a previous executive session where they came out and voted to have the chair do what they discussed in executive session, but you had no idea what that was.
Yeah. I mean, we've done that, like with our lawsuits, in other legal actions we've taken. We discussed it in executive session, and when we came out of executive session, there was a motion passed for us to retain the legal counsel for the stated issue. And but we also maintain minutes of the executive session that are only available to the executive committee.
You're not supposed to do that, for the record. Executive session should never have minutes.
We
That's the
have
whole
minutes.
point.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
It does.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
They are private. They cannot be disclosed unless ordered by the parent assembly
Or court.
or are released. But they do exist. We do keep minutes of those sessions.
Yep. It actually is pertinent for legal actions that are taken to demonstrate that it was discussed. It was, whatever, it was debated within the rules. But yeah, so you should have minutes for an executive session. They're just not made public. And a request for them can be denied as long as it's still pertinent.
Well, it depends on that. Technically, I think the LNC would demand the executive committee's minutes. It would take under the rules that they have in existence.
I think you're right. I think the LNC, the body of a whole, could.
Yeah.
What I was referring to was a member or another outside group, not a court.
Yeah,
couldn't request them.
I can request them. They can say no, and there'd be nothing they could do.
Right. Correct.
Yes, I thought I wanted to share something with you, and I think it was kind of germane to what you were talking about earlier. And it just happened. It was on my feed on Facebook, and I just wanted to give you the story and give you the quote of it. It's from an editorial of a newspaper. It said, "We pass over the silly remarks of the president. For the credit of the nation, we are willing that the veil of oblivion shall be dropped over them, and that they shall no more be no more repeated or thought of." It was a editorial in the Harrisburg Patriot and Union on November 24th, 1863, and the silly remarks were the Gettysburg Address.
Wow.
which was given about 159 years ago yesterday.
Yeah.
But I like to point out to people, and it's something that I do, and Sylvia can drop in and can post how I like to do this. Everybody thinks today is so much worse than it was at other times in our history, and in reality, it wasn't. We've been like this for a long time.
Well, if you just have to look at the Stevenson on the floor and the things that the political divide has always existed in this country, even when there weren't political parties to speak of. They were still organizing themselves by ideology and rhetoric, and they would just verbally bash the crap out of each other. And people still picked sides. When these stories came out, they ate it up. I mean, everybody loved hearing about the colorful poetry of vile statements being made against fellow members of Congress being printed in the paper. People loved it, and they would pick their sides based off of it.
Not to mention the actual physical attack on Senator Charles Sumner.
Sure. Yeah.
I was going to say it's all fun and games until Alexander Hamilton gets shot by Aaron Burr.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always existed. It's so like my mother years ago had said to me that when I was a kid, it was safer for kids to be out at night and things like that. But there's more, predators and, bad things that happen and stuff like that. And I said, it seems like that because we live in a connected society now where you're hearing about these stories from all over the state, all over the country, all over the world. But when I was a kid, you had the news at 6 and it was 1 hour long, and they didn't cover little Timmy that got kidnapped in, Oklahoma today. They didn't do that.
Right.
So it's your perception that there's more, but the crime statistics actually show it was much more dangerous when I was a kid in the 80s, not, today.
Hey, you remember when the kid got stuck in the well?
Yeah, was in there
That
for
was like the
6
first time.
days.
That was like the first time they did massive amounts of news coverage about something. If you're, at least that's the first time I
That's
remember.
the thing that I think of too, right? Is the kid it was a girl too, wasn't it? A little girl.
Yeah, Jessica something, wasn't it?
Yeah. They made songs about it.
Right. No, but I mean, that's the first time I remember growing up, of massive news coverage, we're breaking away to talk more about the girl stuck in a well.
Well, and I remember the 90s, the Gulf War, and watching the Scud missiles over Baghdad at night. And the CNN coverage of it, and watching that every night. And it was different from what my parents' generation witnessed with Vietnam, because they were witnessing edited footage that was still horrific, but it wasn't as real as sitting in front of the TV and watching something that's happening live. This is live coverage. This is happening right now. And then you go outside and every street, every tree in your neighborhood has a yellow ribbon on it. Everybody was talking about it. That was it. It was different, but it was because we were so connected to it. That's where we live today. We are a connected society. And so things seem worse than they are. But it's actually probably not as bad.
Agreed. I know that I'm somewhat older than you are, obviously, but 2 points. I was actually talking to a psychologist, and he was talking about how bad things were going. And I said, wait a minute, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, things were a lot worse than they are now. And he didn't believe me. So I went home, got a copy of the FBI statistics and said, here. And I still don't think he believed me, but I had the documentation for it. That was the first thing. That actually the 1960s were much more violent on a per capita basis than the 2010s.
Right.
Or now into not so much into the 2020s, but the 2010s in particular.
I mean, you just have to look at New York and Times Square in the 70s and 80s. Before Times Square became what it is today with the TV lights, it was all porn shops, liquor stores, brothels, and there were 2 people who would die at Times Square just about every day.
Oh yeah.
And violently. We're not talking about people who just OD'd on the street. We're talking about people who were shot 3 times in the face. It was not a good scene. And so it's when people are like, oh, our streets are so violent, I'm like, yeah, it feels that way, but it's been worse.
Well, I can remember the first. I used to be a caseworker in Philadelphia, welfare caseworker, and I can remember on my first day of work, coming into work and stepping on crack files in the middle of the street.
Yeah,
you just couldn't help it. You could just you'd hear them crunch under your feet, and nothing like that exists now. That was
when I lived in San Francisco, that was in 2000. You literally, I would walk out of my apartment, and as soon as you hit the street, you would see 2 people leaned up against the newspaper boxes shooting up. And it was absolutely everywhere you went. I went to go see a movie, and this was in 2000. The tickets to the movie were $20 then, because it was San Francisco. And it was the Metreon, and it was brand new multiplex that they built. And there was a guy in the front row shooting up at the movie. And so, I mean, it was different, but it was the 2 years that I spent in San Francisco. It was constant, absolutely constant. You would see it everywhere, and that was actually the beginning of their policy of not arresting people for shoplifting. Actually started in 2000, and it's just now. And even then, I had friends that owned stores, and they would be like, "Listen, we call the cops, but the cops won't do anything because it was less than $500." So they can come in here and take whatever they want as long as it's less than $500. And that's the policy still today. And you get teams of people who will walk into a store one by one and steal less than $500 worth of stuff and then walk out, and the cops will do absolutely nothing about it. And so San Francisco is a weird situation, but there's always those instances where, you know, it's not crack today, but you know, it may be meth today. When I was younger in high school, we saw a lot of opium, especially here in the Midwest, or hashish.
I will pick up on the video some other time. You all have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you, Dr. Phillies.
Thank you.
But there's always those, you know, those cycles where you have periods of one drug or one vice or one thing being just completely out of control and dominating society. You know, it was the opium dens for a long time, and then you had laudanum. And so it's cyclical, like it just continues to happen. And it's interesting to me because if you had like the Sacklers and Oxycontin fueled a new opium epidemic in this country. But I wonder if it would have happened anyway, maybe not to the degree that it happened because of the way they were marketing Oxycontin, but would it have happened anyway? Because it was that cycle. Would there have been some other thing that would have come along or would have been revived had it not been that particular product? Would it still have happened and just not been Oxycontin? Is the interesting thing that I think about with it.
There's a very good book on this subject written by Steven Pinker, P-I-N, I think it's K-U-R. He's a professor of psychology at McGill in Canada, and he has the facts and figures to reinforce what you gentlemen were just talking about, that there really is a lot less today. It just gets publicized more.
Do you remember what the book was called by any chance?
Something has the word lesser in it, lesser angels or
Pinker was his name, P-I-N.
right, Steven Pinker. He's a professor of psychology at Harvard, and I think he came from McGill originally because he is a Canadian.
Is his name E-R or U-R?
I'm not sure.
Let me try U-R, Stephen.
Pinker.
I'll get it. Pinker, here we go. The better angels of our nature.
Right.
Your angels of our nature. I'll have to look that up.
Quoting Lincoln's inaugural address, since we were talking about Lincoln.
Yeah.
But that is one thing that I've actually found. And I think it's because I am interested in history, and that comes, and Sylvia, you can kind of, I think you might agree with me on this. I hope you would, but I think some of that comes with being a parliamentarian.
Probably.
Yeah. Because we're looking at things from a longer term historical basis and wondering about how things are developing.
Right. And that's why I attend all these meetings. I never speak. Well, first of all, I don't think anybody cares about my 2 cents going into the pot. But I have to, as a parliamentarian, you have to know the culture of this group and how they think and why they think to help you really understand what's going on.
Oh, yes.
Right. And when I worked, I was a court reporter. And I think that helped me be a parliamentarian because I was a trained listener. And when people talk, you think semicolon, paragraph, you know exactly what they're saying. And that helps a lot when I go to these meetings and have to listen
Yeah.
to what people are saying.
One thing that just happened last week, as a matter of fact, Karen Ann Harlos has a show, The Cult of RONR, on YouTube. And she gets into depth on parliamentary procedure. And I enjoy the show. I have to admit, I'm a fan. And we were discussing something that came up there dealing with disciplinary action and how that would work. And it became like about a half an hour discussion. I actually phoned in because she was asking me a question about an article that I'd written. And I think it's just very informative if you listen to the first half hour or so of the last show that she put up on that, because it does deal with a lot of things and a lot of issues that just really don't get explored too much before. It deals with disciplinary action and things like that.
Well, I started to listen, but when they got to reconsider, in my opinion, they were so far off on what they were talking about that I just quit listening. And the whole thing about reconsider, it's timely. It has to happen before that gavel goes down or forget it.
Pretty much.
And they kept talking about what I would consider things that had to be rescinded.
That could be. I don't know. It might have been some of their earlier shows. They did have some problems. They were learning, and it's a learning experience for them. And that's the thing that I like about the show. It's an educational show. They go over questions for the registration examination.
Right.
And they are incredibly detailed. But we were talking about other things that were getting exceptionally detailed as well that I didn't even see in the registration examination. Would have implications for organizations like the LNC.
Right.
But I really do enjoy them. And it's just because it's just interesting that they developed the Socratic method.
Right.
Two of them, it's Karen Ann Harlos and Mike Seebeck from
Right.
And they go back and forth on things, and it is funny. It can be risque. If that bothers you,
no,
you shouldn't listen to it. I enjoy it. I enjoy that. So
I like to play between the two of them. I find
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. In the occasional times I've either been on there or I've called in, I like to do things very deadpan. So that's just the way I do things when I'm dealing with them. We're being joined by another parliamentarian. Good evening, Richard.
Hello, JJ. How are you?
I am doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm good. Who all's in here waiting for them to come out? Okay, now I see everybody. I'm on my cell phone, not my laptop. So this is kind of awkward. Hello, Sylvia. I see you're here.
Yes.
Oh, that was you I heard talking a while ago when I was watching it on when I had gone to YouTube.
Oh.
By the way, congratulations on being selected for the bylaws committee.
Was that a condolence or a congratulations, Richard?
To me, that's one of the most important committees, but I really hope this committee does a good job. I've got to tell you, I have not been impressed with the last couple.
Well, they have the talent, so
they do have the talent this time. I think they have good people this time. You know, and I have been impressed with some others, but I just was not at all impressed this last term, and not particularly impressed the previous term. And for what it's worth, I'm still disappointed that in 2020, at the hybrid convention, the delegates did not adopt the bylaw amendment that would have permitted virtual conventions, in emergencies with some sort of a supermajority vote of the LNC. I pray that never happens again.
As it happened, I was at the convention on 9/11, 2001, which was held about 4 miles from the Pentagon. So one of the things that I have been dealing with have been emergency bylaw procedures. And I've been writing on that for about now, 20 years.
Wow.
We're still dealing with it. We're still dealing with it. How do you handle these kind of things? How do you do it? I have I was the secretary of one of the few organizations that did not miss a single meeting due to the pandemic.
Awesome. Well, if you need want somebody to collaborate with, or you want help on this, let me know, because it's a hot button issue of mine as well. But at least we reached the first proposed bylaw amendment, which would permit the remote delegates to participate. It only took us a whole day to get there, though.
Well, I really enjoyed it when they argued for 2.5 hours whether to let somebody speak for 5 minutes or not.
Listen, that hybrid convention was not fun, or at least not at first. It got better, but the one that was not fun was the virtual convention. The first half of the convention, part one of it was no fun at all. That was not good. But we got the job done. We got done what we had to do. And I think it worked out better, I think, than the NAP hybrid convention a couple of years ago.
That's National Association of Parliamentarians, by the way.
Right.
That's right. When you say NAP around here, they think you mean something else.
Yes. Yeah. But Sylvia, Richard, and myself are all members of NAP, and we're all have or had some of the certificate. I'm now retired, but we all have some of the certificate. Some level of certification with the organization.
Right. And so does Karen Ann.
Yes.
And for that matter, so does Alicia Matson and a handful of other members.
Yeah. Chuck Moulton, I don't know if he obtained it, but he did for a while.
I think he did. I think Chuck let his PRP or RP status lapse, but I'm not sure.
Because I know he was not active in the Pennsylvania Association.
And Joshua Katz, who used to be was a member of the LNC several years ago, is the registered parliamentarian and contributes regularly on the Robert's Rules Forum. And I'm glad to see Alicia Matson participating now, although she's using she's using the name Alicia Purcell, and I don't know if that was her maiden name or former married name. I'm not sure. She's got too many names.
I have unfortunately been a bit too busy to participate. over the last couple of months, especially since Virginia popped up.
And we've missed you too. There've been a few good discussions going on, and a few rather powerful or rather strong disagreements. But Alicia has been participating and making very good, very thoughtful comments, very well thought out.
How was the election in Louisiana? How'd it go?
Well, we reelected our U.S. senator with about a 60 to 70% margin, which was expected, even though there were about 12 or 14 people in that race. And my was reelected overwhelmingly with about 70%. Election. And there was also, I think, a libertarian in the Senate race. And a few months ago, we cleaned house with our city of Cantor administration.
You're fading, Richard. You're fading.
All right, hang on.
Okay. And Richard and I just collaborated on a paper.
Do I sound better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Robert, we had our Kenner City elections a few months ago, and we unseated the sitting mayor with about I forget whether it was a 60 to 40 margin or 70 to 30 margin. That's something exceedingly hard to do, to unseat an incumbent mayor. And it made a few other changes that a few of us fought hard for. So it was it was a little bit of work and a lot of fun.
Well, there's an attempt to impeach our district attorney here, which I don't think he should be our district attorney. I'm not certain if impeachment is appropriate in this case, but
I think I've heard of that, and yeah, I was surprised. I should not be surprised, but I was surprised to learn that there are some states that allow impeachment of other elected officials, such as the Attorney General.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Apparently, some states allow the governor to remove other elected officials.
In theory, Pennsylvania does upon address of the Senate.
Yeah.
But it's considered to be obsolete.
Yeah. Now, the city of New Orleans has a recall petition going to recall their mayor, which may succeed, but it looks like it won't. And Louisiana has exceedingly difficult recall provisions, especially for elected officials who represent large areas, who had a lot of votes. It's fairly easy to recall somebody like a school board member, exceedingly difficult to recall large city mayors or state representatives, state senators, statewide elected officials. It's exceedingly hard to recall them in Louisiana.
Pennsylvania has absolutely no recall provision, and it's been ruled by our state Supreme Court to be unconstitutional. But we do have impeachment. Any official except for a member of the legislature can be impeached, down to basically borough councilmen, borough auditors, something like that. It's down to that level.
And I personally think that's maybe not a bad thing, although I suspect maybe most libertarians would disagree with it and think recall should be the only option for an elected official. And I understand that. And I guess fundamentally I do agree. It's just that recall can just be so time consuming and so difficult. And there are times it seems like impeachment just should be in order.
It's still difficult. I mean, we do have a Senate trial. You need a 2/3 vote in the Senate. It's not an easy thing.
Trying to think what other National Party members are credentialed parliamentarians. I can't think of the man's name, but there's a physician in California. I think he's a radiologist. I think he's an RP. Robert, if you're here, you might know who I'm talking about, but he's active in the California state.
You're talking about, he was the region rep for California. Oh man, why can't I remember his name?
I'm visualizing him.
Yeah,
I can visualize him too.
Nice guy.
He was always with Scott Lieberman.
That's him. That's right. That's it.
Of course, Kim Goldsworthy was the very well-known, the late Kim Goldsworthy.
He was, right. In fact, Kim was serving as the parliamentarian for the California party until he died, and then Mimi Robeson, with the approval of the executive committee, retained me to serve as their parliamentarian.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if, I know he was an active member of the party. I don't know if he was ever on their state central committee, or rather executive committee.
I think at one point he was. I know he was a candidate for office several times.
Yeah. And I think at the convention just before the first one I served at, Alicia Matson served as their parliamentarian, but with her being the member parliamentarian, that caused some complications at that particular convention, because they had some very close votes. I think 1 or 2 by maybe a 1 vote margin, and they were on the verge of losing quorum the entire time. And there were people who thought that she should not even be participating as the parliamentarian. So that was when they retained me.
Mm-hmm.
I've got tremendous respect for Alicia. She's very good. And for that matter, so is Aaron, her husband. Even though he's not credentialed, he's doggone good.
Mm-hmm.
Sylvia, how'd the election go in South Carolina?
Oh, it's the same old, same old. This is a big Republican state. I would say 50% or more of the down ballot don't even have anybody running except a Republican.
And that's not unusual in some places.
No.
Well, in Louisiana, Howard Kearney, who some of you may know, he's active in the Louisiana Libertarian Party, but he's run for Congress for this particular seat several times, the last few elections. Super nice guy, smart guy. He would make a very good congressman. But against somebody like Steve Scalise, as popular as Steve is, nobody has a chance. And I don't know who the Libertarian candidate for the U.S. Senate was. I know there was one, but I don't know who it was. And
Well,
also Rufus Craig ran for Congress from the Baton Rouge area. You know, he's the former Louisiana state chair.
well, our two senators, Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham, are etched in stone in South Carolina.
I can understand how that would be. Yep. You know, Sylvia, I still want to get with you and follow up on some things we discussed at the convention in Reno when we had a few minutes to sit down and talk.
Right.
And we never got to finish that conversation. But I think I still have your phone number, and if I don't, I can get it. So I do plan to give you a call one of these days soon, if that's okay.
Okay, I'll go over it because I don't really remember it.
I think it had to do with the Vermont situation.
Right, yeah, it was Vermont.
Could I make a request? Because as it turns out, I am helping Vermont with their bylaws. Could I make a request for Sylvia, if you can see your way clear? Clear it with the client. Could I read your opinion? Richard, I have already read yours.
You're speaking of the opinion on the
yes.
Well, the only one I wrote concerning them, yeah.
Well, I wrote an opinion that was directed by the Secretary of State. And what the Secretary of State requires is what was utmost in my duty.
Okay.
Not Roberts, not anything else. I had to make sure they did not lose ballot access.
Okay.
And that's what I based my opinion on. Did the group, Vermont LP, comply with what the Secretary of the State of Vermont wanted in order to retain ballot access? And my whole opinion was directed towards that, and it reached its goal.
Yeah. And then and Sylvia and I think, disagree on the outcome of what happened there. But my opinion was based primarily on the fact that the regularly elected chair would not call a meeting of this executive committee. I say executive committee, it might have been the state central committee, but my position was that they elect somebody called the meeting and they elected a chair pro tem, and then had the chair pro tem call the special meeting. And my position was simply that a chair pro tem has no authority whatsoever to call a special meeting. That's personal to the actual real chair.
Well, my opinion is that basically you can do things retroactively within your bylaws. And
I don't disagree. I don't believe. I know that's a controversial issue. But you have slowly been convincing me. I'm coming around, JJ.
Well, you have to ask Justice Chase and the framers of the 14th Amendment, since they did it. But in my opinion, it could, my opinion is there would be no, if the bylaws authorize it even after the fact, there will be no continuing breach.
I personally, I tend to think you're right. The majority of credentialed parliamentarians may or may not agree. The authorship team of RO&R may not agree, but I am coming around to that point of view that if the bylaws authorize it, state that what was done, is
Well, as I like to say, it was
ratified or whatever. I think they can do it.
Yeah, I think that basically it's a nice way to say I think I'm probably coming down in the middle of both of your things, which, but at the end of it, you're both going to be happy with the result. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, Tim Hagan.
Oh,
Hello, Tim.
Oh,
This is Rick Brown. How are you?
Right, how are you?
Did not see you come in, but I'm on a cell phone where it's hard for me to see who all's here. Ah, there you are. Okay. How things going, Tim?
Oh, all right. How are you?
I'm good. Doing good. I miss seeing you. So
Yeah.
but we're still, it's even though it's been a year and a half now, well, not quite a year and a half, it's been a year and maybe 3 months since Hurricane Ida. We're still making repairs from that, and just that knocked a lot of people in this area for a real loop. But I'm doing fine and enjoying myself and having fun working in some local elections and winning them and getting my people elected
Good.
and unseating a mayor with something like 70 to 30% vote margin.
Quite a bit for an incumbent to lose by.
That was fun. We also had a lot of help from a TV station that decided to do an investigative series on local shenanigans that aired over a period of several days shortly before the election.
Tim, I did not realize in Nevada you could vote for NODA. That is wonderful.
great.
For statewide offices only, and it doesn't have any teeth. If NODA gets 99%, wherever person gets the most still wins.
But still, it's nice to have the option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was Nevada. I think I just recently read that as well. I had forgotten which state it was, but I was very surprised to see that.
am I correct in that Nevada does not have write-in votes?
That's correct.
Okay.
And Louisiana does not have write-in votes.
You don't have write-in votes either. Okay.
Oh,
Ours is electronic, and so there are no write-in votes.
There's no way to write. There's no way to vote for somebody who's not on the ballot.
Correct. Yep.
Because we have electronic voting and we have write-in votes. I was actually elected to something using by write-in votes.
Congratulations.
Not in this election, believe me. It was about 30 years ago.
Yeah. You and
Shout out to
who-
Nathan Madden. Nathan Madden won for school board in Arizona as a write-in. So
Great.
congratulations to Nathan, who is listening in on YouTube.
Really wonderful. Who was the senator from Alaska several years ago who was elected with a write-in vote? Was it Lisa Murkowski? I think it was someone else.
No, that's who it was, because there was the controversy over them counting voter intent because they significantly misspelled her name in a lot of write-in votes.
That's right.
There
Yeah.
was a controversy over whether or not
Yeah.
you could determine voter intent when the name was so misspelled, which you can, but they wanted to use that to not get her in. But yeah, that was her.
Yeah. And you know, the inability of the election commissioners in Louisiana, well, it's what we call the precinct workers or commissioners. Several years ago, about 10 years ago, there was a ballot proposition to do away with the tolls on one of the Mississippi River bridges. And it was on a presidential election ballot. I think it was one of the elections when Barack Obama was elected. So it was a very high turnout election. 3 parishes, which are counties. Louisiana has parishes, not counties. Just a different word for the same thing. 3 parishes or counties that, you know, mostly used the bridge, voted on it, and it lost in that huge turnout election by something like 18 votes. But because it was a federal election, you know, we were voting for president, senator, and Congress, we had to make provisional ballots available. And in Louisiana, they're only used in federal elections. But when you vote a provisional ballot, you can only vote in those federal races. You cannot vote, and it's a paper ballot. You cannot vote on the voting machines, and you cannot vote in any local races or any propositions or constitutional amendments. Well, a group of us who had worked very hard to try to get rid of those tolls went to work after the election, trying to find a way to get a new election, you know, based on that 18 vote margin. We found it because the commissioners, the election workers, could not find the names. We found 30-something people who were in the precinct register. They were listed as registered voters in the precinct. Most of them, a lot of them were foreign, had unusual spellings. The precinct workers simply overlooked their names in the precinct register and made them vote using a provisional ballot. So we found way more people who were denied the right to vote than we needed to overcome that 18 vote margin. Went to, filed suit, went to court. Lo and behold, we won. The judge ordered a new election. And what happened next is a good example on how important it is to schedule things like proposition elections at the proper time for either a high turnout or a low turnout election. The second election was on a low turnout election when there were just some propositions on the ballot. The measure to get rid of the tolls on that bridge passed overwhelmingly by something like a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 margin. Whereas on the presidential election day, it failed by 18 votes. And that's because the people who used that bridge, who were tired of having to pay the tolls, turned out to vote. They came out to vote en masse, and we won overwhelmingly. We got the new election simply because the commissioners did not find the voters' names in the books, and they were in the book. They were in the precinct register. The commissioners just didn't look hard enough. The very first Louisiana election I worked in was a U.S. Senate campaign that turned out to be a contested election, contested both in court and in the U.S. Senate. And the hearing before I think it was the Senate, I guess the Senate Rules Committee, or was it Judiciary Rules Committee, I think. Actually, I'm not sure. I forgot which committee. It's whichever one Robert Byrd, I think, was chairman of. Or no, maybe he wasn't chairman. I think that one of Elizabeth Taylor's ex-husbands was chairman of it, I think. Who was that? John Warner?
John Warner from Virginia.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it was, yeah, John Warner was chairman, I think. And I was up there for that. That was a fascinating experience. And a group of us spent days in the registrar's office comparing signatures, copying signatures from the voter registration cards, comparing signatures to the signatures of the voters when they signed in to vote.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama. We also have Wanjiro Mahoney. She is the executive director of the World Foundation.
Brian, did you get much damage from the storm?
I was very lucky. I live in Vero Beach, and so Nicole went right over our house. The eye of it did, but it was only a category 1 when it hit. So that was very blessed on dodging that bullet. Had no damage really.
What county is Vero Beach in?
Indian River.
Ah, okay.
So nothing like what happened with Ian on the west coast of Florida. That was awful.
We don't have any elected libertarians in Indian River, do? Oh, yeah, we do. Sean Elliott. That's right.
How did you know I lived in Florida?
Well, I know where everyone lives.
I just moved here a few months ago.
Oh, really?
Robert,
Okay.
Yeah.
I
originally was in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Robert is the man. He knows everything.
He's got his fingers in a database somewhere.
He absolutely does.
I work with Dave Schrader doing data analytics.
Oh, cool.
And then I met Todd Agopian a few times when I lived in Oklahoma. Worked a lot with Chris Powell, who has run a few times in Oklahoma. I've been his treasurer a few times.
So what brought you to Florida?
The beach. Definitely the beach.
Yeah, the ocean's a little far away from Oklahoma, isn't it?
It is. It is. I told my wife that I'm finally starting to feel like I'm not on vacation, but actually live here. And we moved here in first week of June.
And you get welcomed by a hurricane. How wonderful is that?
That's not too bad. I left tornadoes and earthquakes to come to a hurricane, right?
There you go. Sylvia, what part of South Carolina are you in?
I live near Charleston,
Oh, nice.
so it's the southern tip.
Very nice.
We're not far from Georgia.
Sylvia, does Breeze Airways, that fairly new small airline, does
Right.
it fly to Charleston?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do quite a bit of work in Virginia Beach, and they have direct flights. So I'm taking them. And I also see that they go to Providence, Rhode Island.
They do, yep.
Yeah. I just wish they went to New York, but unfortunately.
Well, I've got a round trip ticket. It's it's a low cost airline for those who don't know about it. And I purchased when they first started service in New Orleans a little over a year ago.
Right.
They had direct nonstop flights to Oklahoma City, and my nephew lives there. And so I bought a ticket just shortly after they inaugurated that flight. Turned out I could not go on the date that I had planned, but they allow you to cancel, just much like Southwest.
Right.
And your credit is good for 2 years.
Good.
Well, shortly after that, they eliminated the Oklahoma City route. And they fly to about a dozen cities from New Orleans, and they just added 2 more cities. I forget which 2, but they just added 2 more. Every now and then I look at the cities they fly to, trying to think, well, do I have any reason to go here? Do I have any reason to go there? Who do I know here? And I think you're the only person I know in Charleston, South Carolina. But we've got some very good old friends who live in Maine, and I think South Berwick, Maine, which is about 2 hours from Providence.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking of just flying to Providence and going to see the old friends who we met right after we got married in Long Beach, Mississippi. But we have a good friend who flies Breeze pretty regularly. She lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is where the corporate offices for Walmart are.
Right.
And she has a home in Biloxi, Mississippi, which is about an hour from New Orleans. But she and her husband both fly Breeze Airlines pretty regularly between Arkansas and New Orleans. And in fact, she came over here, spent the night with us last week to catch an early flight the next morning, and then she was here again a couple of days ago when she flew back. She and her husband love it.
I like Breeze. They also go to Pittsburgh. I've been to Pittsburgh with them.
They do, yeah.
Columbus, Ohio. I do a lot of work with the American Kennel Club. I'm a delegate. And a lot of the breed clubs, every year they have a national show, and they can join their national meeting and their annual meeting with the annual show, because people come from all over the country. So I always check out Breeze because I try to keep my rates within reason, for the people that I work for, my clients. And so I take Breeze quite a bit whenever I can.
Well, I keep hoping they add Oklahoma City back, and every now and then I write to them, and say, please add Oklahoma City back to your route. But yeah, I think they fly to Pittsburgh, but not Philadelphia. And if they flew to Philadelphia, I would go see you, JJ.
I was just going to say, if they flew to Philadelphia, Sylvia, one weekend a year at least, you can get a lot of dog clubs up in Pennsylvania for the terrier breed trials.
Right. They also have big shows in Harrisburg a lot.
Okay.
This year, one of the breeds that I work for, the Pug, PUG, they had their national in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Oh.
So of course they asked me, for a reference, and Carrie Dixon, I believe her name is now in Wyoming. But they were shocked that I knew somebody in Wyoming.
Well, I keep on explaining to people that are outside of the field, when it sounds like I'm dropping names, I'm not. Right. It's just the field is so small.
Right.
That we all know each other.
Right.
And it was like when I was talking to the Vermont group, it was funny, and they were saying, well, we think this guy is a parliamentarian. I said, well, he might be the national. I said, Richard Brown. He said, yeah, that's it. And they were saying Sylvia, and they didn't say Arrowwood. I forget what it was. And I said, you mean Sylvia Arrowwood, don't you? And she said, yeah, that's it.
Yep. JJ, I think I know why you said I was fading a while ago. I've got an AirPod in, but I think it had stopped working, and my cell phone was I was using the microphone in my cell phone, and my finger was covering it up.
I dislike cell phones. I'm on my desktop. There was a very funny story about me during the run up to your convention. Somebody from the Mises Caucus was trying to wanted to get in touch with me, and the chairman asked if it was okay, and I said yes. Just give him my phone number, and they sent him my phone number, which is my landline. And I kept on waiting for the call, 3 or 4 days, expecting the call, didn't hear anything. I got a message from him on Facebook and says, why haven't you returned my call? And I said, I haven't gotten your call. What number were you trying? Mm-hmm. And he said, I sent you a text message at 215-229-1185. And I said, that's my landline. So I tell people, do not text me. I'll never be able, I'll never get it. Don't try to do that.
Up until about a year ago, I actually preferred my landline as well. Although I've always been a big texter, but my wife and I have just not given our cell phone number out to very many people, and as a result, we don't get any spam calls or robocalls on our cell phones. They all come to the home phone. But just lately, I've gotten to where I prefer the cell phone. But I was going to tell you something else, and I can't remember what it was. But
well, I am disabled, and I am not incredibly mobile, and I'm not away from my phone all that much. So it's easier, to do everything by the landline. I'm just so used to it. That's why I said call the landline. You can get a hold of me that way.
Well, I was slow to come around too. All my friends knew to call me on my landline, and a couple still do. Daniel Hayes is one who still does. I know Robert Krause knows Daniel, and Tim Hagan Tim knows Daniel, I'm sure. Daniel lives in the New Orleans area. In fact, he lives in Kenner now. We live about 10 or 15 minutes apart. But he still usually calls me on my landline.
JJ, where are you located?
I am in Philadelphia.
Okay. Well, Pennsylvania once again did pretty good in the elections for libertarians.
Well, I don't think they won anything.
I thought they did good. I forget though. I would
don't
have to look it up.
I don't think they won any seats anyplace. And we don't have our municipal elections this year.
Ah, okay.
They
Well,
might-
I know we had a constable, Ohio Township,
Okay.
and Birdsboro, also a constable.
That's good.
And we won a township auditor.
Yeah, I knew about that.
Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had some success though. A lot of auditor positions.
Didn't libertarians do pretty well this go around with local elections?
Oh yeah, very well.
From what I've heard.
Yeah. There was a mayor. They got a mayor's seat in Colorado, I think.
Right.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of auditors and constables.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is that because nobody wants those positions? So we're just lucky that we had libertarians willing to put their name
That's
out
a
there.
lot of it. That's a lot of it. You can elect up to 3 auditors in many. It's either 3 auditors or 1 controller, and most places don't have controllers.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you get auditors at basically the townships, small townships, and small borough levels. And you get 3 positions, so there's a fairly good amount there. And constables are, I think, 1 per municipality or 1 per ward when the municipality is divided into wards.
And what is a constable?
A constable is an officer of the court that serves as basically an elected paper server, but he has the basically the duties of a police officer.
Yep. In many jurisdictions, he basically serves as the process server for a justice of the peace. They handle a lot of evictions and that sort of thing, but it's technically he's a law enforcement officer, but it's I think primarily to serve papers.
Yeah, similar to a sheriff, but a sheriff generally has more jurisdiction.
Correct. Yeah.
We do have county sheriffs in Pennsylvania as well. They have virtually no patrol or investigative authority, and I think are capable of making arrests, but I'm not even sure about that.
Yeah. Speaking of the municipal elections and libertarians, I was hoping Karen Ann would do better in her race. I watched the debate, the one debate they had, and I thought she outperformed her 2 opponents.
I thought
she ran circles around the incumbent. I was stunned at how unimpressive the incumbent seemed to be.
Yeah.
Now the man, her male opponent, I think, who was the Republican, was pretty good.
Yeah.
But my gosh, the incumbent just left me wondering how on earth did she ever get elected in the first place?
Robert, if you will shoot me an email, I have some information on constables, I believe, on my hard drive. I can send that out to you. It's local government, it's local offices in Pennsylvania. There is a entire little booklet on it. If you'd like to send that, if you'd like to send me your email, I will mail it out to you. Robert? Hello?
Hi, I will do that. Dustin, do I need to get you back in the other room?
I let the chat know if you need to let her know, yeah, but give her some time to do it. I accidentally closed my Zoom.
Let's see.
Robert, how did
sending you back?
Oh my
over
gosh,
there.
who was the guy in California who was on the large county board of supervisors, very active in the California Party. I think he was on the LNC for a while.
I think he was reelected.
Jeff Hewitt.
Good, because
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, Jeff
Okay.
Hewitt. I
Jeff Hewitt,
forget
right?
if he
Yeah,
won his race or not. I can't
because
recall.
I heard it was going to be close, so I was wondering.
Yeah, I know it was
thought
close.
he
Thank
did.
you. Yeah, I think I don't believe he actually won that one.
Oh, sorry.
I really like Jeff, like him a lot, and his wife, Jeff, both of them. I think they're just terrific people.
Yeah, he's there until sometime next year. I
Gosh.
forget when they get sworn in.
That's disappointing. Was he a mayor of a small town before
Yeah.
he was elected? That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Robert, do you have my email?
I do indeed.
Are you sure?
Well, let's see. I'll tell you in 1 second.
It's not
but I won't say it. I won't say it totally out loud. I will give you a hint, and then you tell me how close I am. How about that?
Okay.
since this is recorded, unless you want everybody to know it, in which case you could just say it. I'll tell you if it's right. No. Let's see. Give me just a moment to get back in there.
Pennsylvania not only has constables, they also have something really weird called prothonotary,
Oh,
Oh,
my
yes.
God.
prothonotary.
Yes. As the Pope does, believe it or not. But in our case, they are actually clerks.
Clerk of courts, more or less.
They're clerks of civil courts that don't include certain things in some counties, such as wills and deeds and things like that.
That comes under probate.
It depends on the county. In some counties, everything, you get just one giant county clerk's office that does everything in smaller counties. In others, it's divided up. But yeah, we do have county prothonotarians in, I believe, all counties, though in many places they're combined with other offices.
Right. Well, before coming to South Carolina, we were in the Pittsburgh area
Okay.
there for a long time. And I remember when the attorneys would come from out of town, they would all say, "What in the hell is a prothonotary?"
Well, actually, so did Harry Truman when he was introduced to the Allegheny County prothonotary.
Oh, okay.
He said, "What the hell is a prothonotary?" And they explained it. He said, "Wow, such an impressive title." Where in Pittsburgh were you?
Mount Lebanon.
Okay, well, I had an aunt and uncle who lived in Dormont,
Okay.
and great aunt and great uncle. And my great uncle almost threw Harry Truman off a train at one point. But I was actually born in Natrona Heights,
Okay.
and my entire family is from the Mon Valley.
Okay. Monongahela.
Yeah. Well,
Spell.
my father was born in Jacobs Creek, believe it or not,
Oh, okay.
and my mother was born in Monessen.
Monessen. Okay, I've been in Monessen.
And they
Big
grew up in
steel town.
So JJ, is your email still the Gmail account ending in 4032?
Never was.
Oh, that's not yours. Okay.
That's not
It has a big cross next to it, so I wasn't sure if that was it.
That was never mine. You need my email.
Well, I want you to just give it out here, but if you could tell
I'll
me
tell
just
you
the
what.
first part of it, I could probably come up with it.
You won't be able to do it if you're looking on your database.
Well, I have both of y'all's emails if I can be of help.
Send it to me. But I'll tell you what, it's actually on the LNC list if you take a look at a couple of opinions that I wrote that were added to the list.
Ah, okay.
So But Richard, if you would send it out, that would be one way or the
I'll
other.
do it. Yeah, I've got both of y'all. So
Okay.
unless Roberts has changed within the past year, I've got it.
Oh, no, mine, everybody knows. It's
Okay.
on the website,
Okay.
operations@op.org.
I'll send y'all an email to the two of you, and then you'll have it.
No, they have Pennsylvania is relatively good about printing out, about doing, informational books on public office and things like that. And they have a number of manuals that are now in PDF form that they actually are very, very good. And I have a copy of one of them it's might be 3 or 4 years old, but I'm sure that not too much has changed. You should be able to it should give you an idea of what everything locally happens and what's locally happening in Pennsylvania. And they do nice work with the department that puts it out.
Listen, changing the subject a bit, is there any word on when Angela is expecting her baby?
It
I
could
guess
be
just when
right
it
now,
comes.
right on,
That's
right
right.
during the executive session. They're going to come out of executive session to come into public
It
room.
cannot come out in executive session. It's not permitted to be in executive session.
Right, because everything has to be done in the public. So we'll insist she comes out here to join us all. And then we will hold an online donation page where everybody gets to vote on the name. Because that's how we should do things.
By the way, I think that was awesome of her to host everybody, at the in-person meeting. So, I didn't know that was going to happen till I read about it after the fact. It's still hard for me to think of her, though, as being a Texan rather than California.
Yeah.
My first experience with her was the first time I served as the parliamentarian for the California affiliate for their state convention, and she was the one who jumped up at some point during probably just about every motion, whether she would speak on it or not. Often she would speak on it. She would be one of the first to speak, and then conclude by saying, "And I call the question." On motion after motion after motion. Then at one of the more recent conventions, before it started, I asked her if she was planning to do the same thing, and she said no, that she thought those days were behind her.
Well, I wonder if she ever moved to postpone indefinitely, then call the previous question.
I do not recall.
Which I have done, as well known. For which I am notorious.
And I guess that's you moved to. Did you conclude remarks on the motion with a motion to postpone indefinitely and then call a question, or did you just simply rise to move the previous move to postpone indefinitely?
I spoke against the motion, moved to postpone indefinitely, which was seconded, which I was surprised. And then I said to the chair, who was about to recognize somebody else, "Madam Chair, I believe I have preference in recognition." And she said, "Oh, yes, you do." And I said, Madam President, I move the previous question.
Yep.
On the motion, yeah, it was just on that. That was, except I did this in front of a room full of parliamentarians. I thought
Yeah.
I was going to be in big trouble because I just corrected the chair of the National Association of Parliamentarians.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because she came up to me afterward, and I thought, I'm going to get a chewing out. She looked at me and said 2 words: "Thank you."
Yeah. Okay, I remember that now. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I think that I was there, I think, yeah.
Yeah, you were there. You were there.
I was there, yep. That was that the same time, or was that a different convention from when the guy from Hawaii,
Steve.
Steve Glanstein, when he moved to reconsider and enter on the minutes? And it was the motion to,
yeah, it was the same convention.
Yeah, that was the motion to what, name Henry Robert as an honorary something or other. Yeah. Which failed by just a few votes. But it worked. I've had been waiting for a chance to use that motion or to see someone use it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still the one and only time I've ever seen it used. And it worked. It worked perfectly. It worked out exactly as intended. Although I think there's a lot of dispute as to what the vote threshold should have been to for it to pass, because the chair let it pass with a 2/3 vote, although I think it had way more than a 2/3 vote. But since the motion being voted on required a 90% vote threshold, there's been a lot of speculation, which I think you're part of this theory, that it actually should have been a 90% vote to be able to adopt the motion to reconsider and enter on the minutes. Do I have that right?
No, I wouldn't be, because that is a little bit different. A motion that would require, for example, a failed motion to adopt a special rule of order.
Well, no, it's because it was a bylaw amendment.
I know.
I know. That required the 90% vote.
Yeah, but to reconsider a bylaw amendment, you would only need a majority vote. To reconsider it, now not to adopt it, but just to put it into reconsideration.
All right. Now, also, they had to suspend the rules because he had not voted with the prevailing side. So it was a motion to suspend the rules and to reconsider and enter on the minutes. And the reason for having to suspend the rules was because he did not vote on the prevailing side.
Now that could have been a problem.
Yeah.
Though that rule could be suspended, I have no doubt.
Yeah. But there have been some people who have said that because it boils down to the fact that because that bylaw amendment required a 90% vote, because it was proposed without notice or just 1 day's notice, that it would require that vote to suspend the rules, or perhaps that
it would have required the vote to suspend the rules and adopt. It would not have required that vote, in my opinion, to suspend the rules and permit Steve to make
and consider. Yeah.
And in my
I think you're right. Yeah, I never did subscribe to the theory that it would take a 90%.
Yeah, and in my opinion, you could reconsider a motion. Sylvia, this is one of your points, I'm sure. You could reconsider a motion to amend the bylaws that had failed by a majority vote, though you would still need a 2/3, or you would still need whatever vote was required to amend the bylaws.
Right.
Is that right?
Well, right. Reconsider is usually a majority vote.
Yeah.
The only time I remember an 80 or 90% vote was they did not notice the motion, but there was a motion to let people in foreign countries join the association at
Right.
a reduced rate. And I remember that going down in flames.
Yeah, that went down in flames. That was a more recent convention, I think.
Yeah. And
Yeah, the one where Steve Glanstein made his motion was, I forget the year, but I think it was in Washington,
2015. It was
D.C., right?
2015, because it was the same year that I did my presentation.
Yeah.
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 What is the most unique or rarely used motion?
Yeah.
That one would come close to being, and also the one that Karen Ann made to
rescind and expunge.
Rescind and expunge from the minutes.
And another one, which is I've only seen used properly once, has been objection to the consideration of the question.
Yeah, no, I've seen that used several times at the Libertarian Convention.
Okay, well, I've only seen it used once properly because it's normally it's something that it can't be directed against. The one that I have never seen done has been call the orders of the day, at least not done properly. Have you seen it, Sylvia?
Orders of the day?
Sort of, I've seen get back to the
many
agenda
times.
or whatever you want to call it, but it's calling for the orders of the day.
I have never seen that done when it was, to get something on schedule.
Yeah. Robert, I think to answer your question, I would say that probably the two most uncommon or the most, seldom used motions are reconsider and enter on the minutes, and also to
rescind
and expunge from the record.
What is the funniest motion?
They're all funny.
That's something I would think JJ would come up with. Let's see.
I would go with parliamentary inquiry because you could have a lot of fun with that. One on the U.S. House floor was, Mr. Speaker, is it unparliamentary to call the speaker a big baby?
Decorum.
Oh God.
That was decorum. It was a question. He didn't call him a big baby. He asked the question.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not debatable, right?
It's not debatable, but the chair should answer it.
Right. Correct.
Yep.
And that interrupts everything, right? I mean, you could just anytime you want, you could have a parliamentary inquiry. Yeah.
It depends. It depends. I would tend to allow it in most cases, but
I would as well.
It can be curtailed. It has to deal with the business at hand or with business that was just adopted or business that you wish to introduce.
That's
my favorite motion is calling the question. I worked at a theater and we had to change like 25 bylaws that were just really old. And so my job was as soon as the question was read and seconded, I called the question. I got through 24 of the 25 before people started screaming.
But did it get the 2/3 vote each time?
Oh yeah, I mean everybody's like, yeah. I mean, just there was no debates really, only because I allow it by calling the question immediately.
It works.
Plus, I don't believe in wasting time, so that speeds the process up. I don't like meetings.
I know this will probably never happen, but I think I would like to see, the next convention adopt a bylaw amendment that. Hell, I shouldn't even say this. I should keep my mouth shut, but I'm not. That would not allow the question to be called until there's been at least one speech on each side, unless no one wants to speak. I've seen too many instances where I think through slick maneuvering, people have managed to cut off debate on motions that really needed some debate. But and a lot of organizations do have such a rule in one form or another. That I don't know what the most common variety is. JJ might, Sylvia might, but I know that quite a few organizations have a rule that does not permit that motion until there's been at least one speech pro and con.
I also like rulings of the chair, where you plan something out, plot something out, I guess is a better word, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the chair rule kind of in your favor, right? So, and then it takes what, a majority plus one to overrule the chair, or it
Just
depends on the
majority to overrule the chair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a fun thing to do.
And of course, frequently the chair, I mean, the chair may have motions planted out, in the assembly, or the chair knows who's going to make certain motions, and it's going to call on the person he wants to call on, and that's just the way it happens. may not be right, but that's the way it works. Now, when you have microphones, when you have to line up at a microphone, that can be a little more problematic, because if you're a guy, or the person is going to make the motion that you want to recognize is not standing in one of the mics, then you got a problem.
So what else can you do to totally disrupt a meeting? Or should I just watch the videos from the convention, see what Aaron Starr and Nick does? I didn't say that. I did not just say that. Never mind.
Watch videos of the last convention.
I'm a disruptor, and so you see everything I say. I mean, I like doing things that kind of either move along the process, right, by calling the question, or disrupt the process by asking the parliamentary or the chair to rule on something, because gee whiz, that's just fun, right? So what else can you do that's fun like that?
This is not what you were asking, but I still get a kick out of the fact that the last convention, there was essentially a rule put in place, or at least there were posters all over the place saying that, bullhorns are not permitted in the meeting, in the assembly hall, the meeting hall. Yet when they started, shutting us down and had to turn off the sound system, we wound up having to use the very bullhorns that were prohibited.
I always listen, that wasn't, us. That was obviously the venue. And I warned the venue that when you put up a sign telling libertarians what not to do, you're basically telling them what you want them to do. So we kind of warned them against that, but they didn't listen.
The irony was not lost on a lot of people, that the very bullhorns that were prohibited are what Ken Melman had to use to to close the convention with.
Not at that particular meeting, but one group that I was doing, and it's a town in Delaware, and they have something like New England town meetings. But the meeting before I got there basically ended after 5 minutes in a near riot.
Mm.
I have a tape of the meeting. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. And they were contesting the election under very illegitimate grounds, and the recent election of the chair. And he called me in for the next meeting, and they had sheriff's deputies there to provide security. And they had to remove, at my suggestion, one member for not obeying the rules of the chair. And after the meeting, the two sheriff's deputy came up to me and said, "You're the parliamentarian, right?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "We are walking you to your car." I said, "No, I live in North. I don't know. No, we are walking. You are being escorted to your car for your safety." I thought that was quite funny. I did them for a couple of years too. They're functioning. They basically got everything functional, and they have. I think that they got their healthy organization back again.
I've seen lots of videos on YouTube of meetings, including city council meetings that just absolutely went haywire.
I will send you I have the recording, Richard. I will send you the recording. It's a public meeting.
Okay.
There's nothing secret about it. It was a completely public meeting.
I just
Do that.
Sylvia, what?
I just remembered something. The meeting where Steve Glanstein made that weird motion, it was at the Crystal City Marriott. And
That's right.
City's a part of DC.
Yeah, right outside of DC in Arlington.
You there? I was there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there. I was there for that meeting.
Yeah, no,
That's when JJ and I met. JJ made an awesome presentation. He was one of the presenters.
Right.
And I forget the exact title, but it was basically
Coup d'etat for fun and profit.
Yeah, how to pull off a parliamentary coup d'etat.
And you saw one.
It was an awesome presentation.
Yeah.
But he had a most unusual way of starting the meeting off. And
can I tell the story?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. I arranged for the speaker or for the person introducing me, and I'm not certain who it was. I think it's the current president of NAP now, whoever that is. She was the speaker, and I said, "Well, this is what I would like you to do. Here's something. I want you to read it. I'm going to interrupt it in the middle, so you're not going to have to go through everything." And it began with our next speaker is somebody who really does not need an introduction. He's written X number of articles in National Parliamentarian. It went on for, maybe it went on for about a minute and a half after that, giving biographical stuff. But anyhow, she started doing this, and she started reading this, and she said, "Our next speaker really does not need an introduction. And at that moment, a siren goes off. I kick open the back door and come in wearing an army field jacket, a black neckerchief, black gloves, dark glasses, and a beret. And I walked.
That was you?
Pardon?
That was you?
That was me.
That was JJ.
Laura.
No, that was me.
Okay.
Were you in the presentation?
Not in the presentation, but I was at one of the tables in the back.
Okay, that was me.
Okay.
I think you blew a whistle too, didn't you? Somebody blew a whistle.
Yeah, it was a siren. It was actually like a or something like that. So it was a huge amount of noise. And I walked.
But you just burst in.
I burst into the back, and I walked forward, and I said, "Good evening. Let me see if I can start this. For those of you who don't know me, I am Jonathan Jacobs, and I'm out here to talk to you today about a parliamentary coup d'etat." And I'm standing in front of them in this entire get-up, and I said, "I never dressed like this for a meeting." And I started taking it off. My suit's underneath, I have my suit jacket up there. I slipped the army jacket off and everything like that. And I go in here and I begin saying, "This is what you might think a parliamentary coup d'etat is, but this has nothing to do with a parliamentary coup d'etat. It has to do with following the rules, learning the rules, etc." And then I went into this whole presentation.
There was a really good presentation, and then I knew that JJ was the perfect parliamentarian for what the
Yeah.
the Mises Caucus wanted to accomplish. You know, like it or not, he was custom made for that.
Unfortunately, yes.
Tim, aren't you a registered parliamentarian?
Me?
Tim
Me?
Hagan.
Oh,
No, I thought about applying for it, staying up and doing it.
it's well worth it. Though I am retired now.
And that may be before long, but not yet.
I'm
still going strong right now.
I'm taking
Richard?
I'm taking retirement for my CPP at the beginning of the year as well. So
Richard,
Yeah.
they're not going to let you retire till they carry you out in a pine box.
Well, I hope I get to stick around a while. I enjoy working for the party, and then for some of the state affiliates. So, and I've enjoyed some of the squabbles and trying to set things right.
yeah. I will say I've enjoyed working for the state affiliates as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I've enjoyed doing the stuff for the, at the convention and everything, but I actually enjoy doing things like helping them with their bylaws. So and I think that with my background, I'm out there, I will see the kind of things that somebody else can exploit, and I will try to close up the holes in.
Yeah. Well, I think after this past year or two, a lot of the state affiliates are going to be revising their bylaws. I know, well, a lot are already. They just, and in some of the bylaws I've looked over, there are some atrocious bylaws out there.
Well, we're fixing them in, this is what I was helping out with this week, Idaho and Vermont. And we've been working with Virginia as well to make some modifications in their bylaws.
Yeah. Well, Vermont certainly needs some. I'm not familiar with Idaho so much.
Yeah, they need some. And I'm also strongly encouraging them to put in safeguards for membership. And that's something that I would like to see a lot of. If I'm hoping that will catch on, that there will be safeguards so that basically the membership is in charge and not the board.
And that probably is a good thing, especially based on what's been happening lately.
Yes. That there are a system of at least checks and balances on the power.
Yeah. When it comes to national, you pretty much need a strong national committee because you only have a convention every 2 years. In fact, you cannot have special conventions. Bylaws can be amended to permit them like they used to be. But in a state, it's much easier to have a special state convention if you need to get something done.
Yeah.
And then, so I agree with that. I've seen too many examples of the state central committees or executive committees just going rogue.
Yes. And I'm hoping to write an article about something like that. And I do have the permission of my clients. So I'm hoping to do like a contrast between Virginia and New Mexico. And since I was not advising Virginia, despite what Karen Ann has said, I wasn't advising New Mexico, despite
New Mexico, yeah.
I have been advising Virginia. I do have their permission to do an article about just basically the structure and how, to give an example of how you can fix that kind of a problem when you do have a rogue board.
Yeah.
And I'm somewhat confident that they're going to be fixed completely. So.
Well, Delaware was really my first experience with a rogue board, I guess, because I simply was not involved in what was it, New Hampshire or Massachusetts that actually had the first major problem, but I wasn't really involved in that.
I was not involved in New Hampshire or Delaware. I basically inherited Massachusetts, but I was asked to come into Idaho, and I was asked to come into Virginia. And now I was asked to, though they don't have a problem right now, I was asked to take a look and help with the bylaws in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And they need it.
Yeah. But I hope that there's something that's working out a lot better for them, and something that will be much more democratized as well. It won't be something which is just, it's basically the board giving up power to the members. Which the board seems to be.
Also, a problem with the Vermont bylaws is that one of several problems is that only the chair can call special meetings, as I recall. There's no provision for a certain percentage of the members to call a special meeting.
Yeah.
Well, if there isn't, then you would refer to Roberts, and Roberts says that any two members could do it.
If it's a committee.
Right.
But this is not it's maybe called a committee, but it's actually a board.
Oh, okay.
Well, that depends, but whatever it is, I think it's going to be fixed.
Right.
Yeah.
That's for me is the key point. It's going to be, we're going to come up with something there that is going to make sure that there's going to be no problems, no ground for a previous point of order, or for a point of order on a continuing basis, and that it will fix the problem in the future.
Well, I don't know how much power National has over the affiliates, but I was wondering if they could mandate that they all use Roberts, because some of them are using these crazy parliamentary authorities, I guess you could call them, or cookbooks. I don't know what you call them, but if everybody would have to come under the same set of rules, it might make life a lot easier.
Well, I agree with you that the books that I've seen some of them use, which is Francis and Francis, for example, is not a good choice.
Right, it's not good.
I don't believe that it could be mandated by the board.
I don't think the LNC. Well, could the LNC?
No, in my opinion, they could not.
I'm not sure that it could certainly be done by amending the national bylaws, which would have to be done
by
at
the
a convention.
And I would even question if that would be legit. Let me put it this way: I would even question if that would be good policy. I think that's something that should be left to the affiliates.
Yeah, it may not be good policy, but if the national could do it, I'm not sure the LNC could.
What is Martha's rules?
Martha's?
Yeah, have you heard of that?
No.
That's the cookbook I was talking
Oh,
about.
that's the cookbook. Aha.
You mean Francis and Francis?
And then there's Francis and Francis, and what else is there?
Of course, Francis, now it's called Democratic Rules of Order, but it's the same thing. And there's the AIP Standard Code, which is a good book. And it's the second most popular, but it's way behind Roberts. I mean, Roberts is used by probably 90% or so of organizations. And next in line, I think, would be probably the AIP Standard Code, the American Institute of Parliamentarians. And there's several others that are good, but are not that used. There's Mason's Manual, but that's used almost exclusively by state legislatures. And Demeter's manual, which is not used by very many people now.
I'll tell you what, I've seen Demeters in quite a few unions being used.
Really?
I've seen it being used in veterans organizations.
Veterans. Oh.
Yes.
Mm.
And I
How
want to.
about Atwood?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, you're still here.
Having a nice discussion.
Fantastic. All right. Is everyone back or are we waiting?
Which may live on in perpetuity. Well, hello, Angela. Looks like they're back.
Are we all back? Nope. Here we are. People are trickling in. Okay. So executive committee members.
I have a motion to make, Madam Chair.
Go right ahead.
I move that the executive committee approve the draft budget just posted to the public L&C list by Treasurer Hagopian for referral to the entire L&C.
I'll second.
Fantastic. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Let's go ahead and go to a roll call vote since it's dollars.
Just 1 second here. Mr. Bowen,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mr. Nikela,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Madam Chair, it's 6-0-0.
Okay. I don't need to vote on it. There we go. The motion passes. The draft budget in its draftiness is now adopted by the executive committee. Thank you all. Okay, so we're going to have a budget meeting where the entire L&C approves it, and we need to have that in December. And the dates I've proposed are December 10th and 11th. Does anyone have an issue with one of those dates right now?
Hold on, I'm gonna pull up my calendar.
I can't do December 10th.
You can or cannot?
Cannot.
Okay.
I can do either, Madam Chair.
Okay, so if we do Sunday, December 11th, and we do it in the afternoon.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm checking something. Give me just 1 second. I got to check my work calendar because we're doing a holiday, actually doing a holiday event for the LPO on Saturday and a holiday event for my company on Sunday. And I'm going to try to see when I can thread this needle. Give me 1 second.
Just as a point of information, if my memory serves me correctly, I'll be very embarrassed if it doesn't. I think December 11th is the birthday of the LP, so some affiliates might be having parties.
So December
Wow.
11th at 6 p.m. is my work commitment. December
Okay.
10th earlier in the day would be I think if we do December 10th in the evening, I'm personally okay. I'll figure it out either way. My preference would be in the evening or later towards the end of the evening on the 10th.
Saturday night. Okay, so I don't want to do this Saturday night. That's not a good plan. People are going to have holiday parties and stuff. Okay. How is Sunday afternoon look? If we were to set it at like 3 p.m. Eastern time.
Can we do it in like an hour, like an hour and a half, 2 hours? So my business commitment starts at 6. And I'm about half an hour away from there. So if
I'm
we think
hoping this is a 2-hour meeting since we've already gone through everything.
the earlier the better, that's all I say. I'm just one member, but just for my personal sake.
Is everybody else good with 3 p.m. Eastern, December 11th? It's a Sunday. 3 p.m. Eastern. So for those of you on the West Coast, it'll be 12 p.m. Middle of the day, we'll knock it out. You'll have your evenings. Good?
Good.
Good, okay. No one's traveling. This is like the latest we can push it. Okay, so I'm gonna set it for December 11th, 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's for the entire LNC to approve the budget. Be locked and loaded, be ready to go. All right,
I'll get the notice out.
thank you so much. I believe there's only one thing left for this evening.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Any objections? Going once, going twice. Hearing no objections, we are adjourned at 12:08 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you all so much for sticking it out. I'm so sorry it was so late. You're all super great. Our next meeting will be much earlier, so we will be finished. Not keep you all so late. Have a great Thanksgiving week, and I will talk with several of you probably soon and tomorrow. Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Everybody have.
Good night. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.